Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB 4B51 8x8 US 32D. I should say NRP 8x8 US 32D. This is going to be the largest butt hinge that you see today. Whenever I see these, I always am... expletive follows. Oh my. I mean, it is a huge hinge. It's the largest butt hinge that's available as a commercially available product. Can you have a larger hinge made? Certainly you can in the width. We probably stock some 12-inch wide, but that would only be in a 5-inch tall. This monster, this is something else. So this is an 8x8, and we endeavor to keep a small quantity of 8x8 on the shelf. And the reason is because, well, there are 8x8 hinges that are out in the world, and they are used for generally extremely thick doors, extremely heavy doors is really what it is. And it's the 8-inch height that really mostly defines the characteristics of what the door could potentially be. The width happens to be 8-inch, but it's not connected to the height. You can have 8x6. Okay, you can have 8x8. There isn't an 8x7. It would be 8x6 or 8x8, and they're both good. The height is the first dimension that we think about because it's probably the more important of the two in the sense of which of the two dimensions do you want to know first. So this is an 8x8 hinge. Let's do some dimensional properties of it, then we'll talk about where you'd probably end up using this. It's 8-inch tall. Hinges, butt hinges like this are measured when they are laid open in front of you. It's 8-inch wide. Okay. You would stand to reason that the edge of the leaf to the center of the vertical axis of pivoting is 4-inch. The other dimension that is important to know is the gauge. They have it as 0.19, but that's certainly not right. By the time you're seeing this, I'll have that typo corrected. The template says this should be like 0.205 maybe. 0.200. Okay, so this should be 0.2 of an inch. And my caliper tells me that it's, yeah, it's right there. 0.205, 0.198, 0.205. Yeah, so that's definitely what this is. So it's a massively large hinge. In terms of the hole locations, I can't say that every manufacturer's 8-inch follows this same pattern. I don't know that they do. I could easily pull up templates for 8x8 hinges from Stanley or Hager or McKinney, etc., and view those. Because this is non-template, this is not a standardized template pattern, I wouldn't know for sure if they're all the same. If they're not the same, they're probably quite similar, would be my guess. The point being is if you're replacing an 8-inch tall hinge, you're going to certainly want to make sure of where all these screw holes fall. This is a... Let's do this. Let's dissect the part number, and then after that we'll talk about where you would use this hinge. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. We'll take a little closer look at the part number when we switch to the screen view, but it's a 4B51. The 4 means it's heavyweight. There are 3, well, that's not true. There are actually 5 grades of hinges, but really 3 when it comes to butt hinges. Residential weight, which is about 0.096. Standard weight, which depending on the size is about 0.13 inch. Heavyweight, depending on the size, is about 0.18 inch. This is heavyweight, but the height changes it. So a 4.5-inch heavyweight is 0.180. A 5-inch heavyweight is 0.190. An 8-inch heavyweight is 0.200. But they're all considered heavyweight. We also know that it's heavyweight because it has 4 bearing packets. That is a telltale sign that you're looking at a heavyweight hinge, meaning the leaf thickness is heavier than the standard weight. The B stands for ball bearing. 4B, heavyweight ball bearing. 51, it's either 21, 51, or 81. 21 is brass or bronze, 51 is stainless, 81 by PBB is steel. So this is a 51, which makes it a solid stainless base material. This is a 5-knuckle hinge. That is also part of the part number, and it's non-removable pin right here. So what happens is when you hang the door and you get that pin in place, before you try to drive that pin in place, that set screw will need to be loosened. No need to remove it, just loosen it substantially so that the pin can be driven out. Once the pin is down, seated, you'll then tighten that set screw, and that will render this all but impossible to drive out of the hinge. I've tried. Just, from the exterior, this is what you're going to see. Even if you were to get your head pressed against the door or the frame, you're not going to really be able to get a tool inside of there in order to actually manipulate that, to be able to drive it out. So that's the point of that. Ideally, that hole would be a little further over, ideally, so that to me it looks like you may be able to get an Allen wrench in there if it was the right type of application. I would want that completely moved over so I had at least a partial blockage of sticking a tool in there. So that's the part number. And then, of course, the size. You can have a 4B51 in other sizes, but it's always going to mean heavyweight. It's always going to mean ball bearing. It's always going to mean stainless. It's always going to mean full mortise. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here, and here, how the leaves have been bent. That makes up the hinge. That means that this is a full mortise hinge. When they're brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and the frame. This is going to include screws. It appears as if the manufacturer has provided all machine screws and all wood screws. Do not assume that they're going to send you, and they're stainless, do not assume they're going to send you the screws you need. In the comment field at the time of order, always specify the fasteners you need. On a Saturday morning, you are not going to find stainless number 12 by 1.5 inch threaded to the head flathead wood screws. You're not going to find these. So be sure to declare that so the factory knows what you need. All right, let's talk about now where you're going to use this. Now, where will you use the largest of all full mortise butt hinges? Well, most typically on extremely thick doors is what it is. The door thickness, assuming you're going to have, whatever, a 1/2 inch back set, 1/4 inch back set, you can see that this is going to accommodate a door that's 2.5 inch thick, well, maybe 2 3/4 thick, 3 inch thick, 3 1/4 thick. So if you've got something obscenely thick, which is also very heavy, you're going to want a wide hinge, but also one that's tall. The height is really what gives the hinge its ability to contend with the weight of the door and the volume on the door, along with the width of the door. So as you go heavier, as you go wider, and as you increase the frequency of use, you do want to make that hinge taller. That's the strength of the hinge. The width actually works against all of that because it moves the vertical axis of pivoting out further. If this was an 8x6, that vertical axis of pivoting would be much closer. It'd be 1 inch closer. That allows the hinge to be more efficient. And we'll talk about how to determine the best width of this hinge in a moment. So some door that's going to be thicker, some door that's going to be taller and wider is what it's going to be. I would estimate, let's see if I can give an idea in terms of what to expect regarding weight. And I would be thinking if you have a door that's going to be in the range of maybe 600 pounds and a high frequency use, you could probably get away using this. Medium frequency, you could probably go with a 6 inch or a shorter hinge, but somewhere 300 to 600 pounds should fall within the realm of this type of hinge. But when you get out to those few hundreds of pounds, you should definitely be thinking of pivots. A lot of the time that we sell 8x8s is when the client specifically wants butt hinges because they're matching existing, replacing existing, or they just want to use butt hinges. It's not practical or not desired to use pivots or any other means to hang the door that would be appropriate. So looking at a chart, you know, if you've got a door that's 500 pounds and it's 3-inch thick, you know, yeah, you're going to be looking at an 8-inch tall hinge anyway. You want to tuck that width. You want the width to be as narrow as possible, and we'll talk about that next. In fact, let's just talk about it now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So, we've switched to the screen view, and let's talk about the width of the hinge. So, the width of the hinge that you should end up using is going to be something akin to, let's just say that this is a single rabbet frame. You've got a door here of unknown thickness. Well, we'll have to use some thickness for the sake of this formula. So the formula is going to be, here's the formula. Door thickness minus backset. Door thickness minus the amount of the door that doesn't get prepped for the hinge. Let's say it's a 3-inch thick door. And let's say that our backset's going to be 3/8. So we're left with 2 5/8. We multiply that by 2, we've got 5 1/4. Plus our inset, which is the dimension from the face of the frame to the face of the door, plus our clearance. So in this instance, the way that I've kind of drawn it, this is a less than 1/8, and there is no clearance. So plus, let's just say 1/8. That brings you to 5 3/8. You go to the next commercially available width, and in this case, it would be an 8x6. It'd be a 6-inch wide hinge. But let's say that our inset stayed the same, but now our clearance became 3/4 inch. 5 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 3/4, because now we've got 3/4 inch, because we want to get that hinge, the vertical axis of the pivoting, placed out far enough, and plus we want the door to really swing around. So that's technically going to put us at the 8x8 hinge, because that's the next commercially available width. But you play with the clearance, you play with the inset, you play with the back set, and you play with the door thickness. You could literally have an inset. I've seen these before. You've got a 2 1/4 inch thick door, and you've got an inset of 6-inch. That could exist. Absolutely. And then you've got casing out here. That's weird. It's 1 1/4 thick. So in our prior example, we had 6-inch, a 3-inch minus 3/8 was 2 5/8 times 2 is 5 1/4. Plus 6, plus what I said earlier was 5 1/4. So this is going to be 11 1/4, 12 1/2. That's going to absolutely be a custom hinge. That's to be sure. Let's do something that works. Let's say that this is actually 5-inch. So 10 1/4 plus 1 1/4 is going to be 11 1/2. Yeah, you're going to want a 12-inch wide hinge. That exists. We have those. But it's going to be the width, pardon me, the height that's going to need to be determined. That actually exists. So that's how you determine the width of the hinge that you're dealing with. And while I feel like I've probably used a couple of obtuse examples, or at least, you know, because of the door thickness, the logic is always the same. It's door thickness minus backset times 2 plus inset plus clearance. So that's what you're always going to do, and then you follow or fall to the next widest commercially available hinge. So here's the hinge that we are looking at. Let's take a look at some photographs that we have first. Here's the label. It's much larger in person than that picture reveals. The full mortise nature of the hinge. This is the way that the leaves are bent. The PBB logo. A bit more of a close-up of the logo, the countersinking for the screws, the set screw, the backside. One thing that PBB takes pride in is finishing the backside of the hinge just as they do the front side. Not every manufacturer does that, but they know that you're going to see a certain amount of the hinge when the door is closed. So they finish the entire backside. There are your fasteners. I'm going to guess that they're 1/4-20. They look awfully big for... No, they might be 12/24. The template will reveal what it is. So back to the item that we are looking at. Extended description information down here. We've covered all of it. There's a link here to the template, so let's take a look at that. Yeah, it does. Well, I was right the first time. It does tell us that they're 1/4-20 screws, and it's a number 14 by 1.5 inches, not a 12 by 1.5 inches. So 1/4-20 by 1/2 inch flathead machine screws. One screw pack includes all machine screws and half wood screws. This package that I have here includes all wood screws, so be mindful. According to the manufacturer's published data, you would not get enough wood screws if you had a wood door and a wood frame. So that's why we want to declare to the factory what we require. As far as I'm concerned, you know, a hollow metal frame or a steel frame requiring machine screws would be rather unusual. But nonetheless, anything is possible. Now, else on this template, it's going to tell us the length of the hinge. It's going to give us the location of all the screw holes. It's going to give us an S and an L dimension. Well, L, we know that's going to be 4-inch. E, we don't know. E and S, we don't know. So we can look here in the table. E is going to be 0.766. S, depending on the width of the hinge, seems to be missing a table here. But we can tell that this is a 6-inch wide and that's an 8-inch wide. So basically 2 and 15 30 seconds, 3 and 15 30 seconds. I had talked earlier about the gauge of the thickness. I missed that asterisk earlier. They're supposed to be 0.190. Here you go, 8x6, 8x8. Now, let's take a look. Below this video, as seen here, is a link to the manufacturer's page. When you pull that up, you'll be able to review not only all of the PBB products we sell by means of that horizontal navigation, but also a link to the website, as well as a link to the product catalog. And I would certainly encourage that you open that up. All good Hinge catalogs offer a tremendous amount of guidance and encyclopedic data. Not all manufacturers of hinges have good Hinge product catalogs. PBB is among those that are good. PBB and two others I can think of right off the top of my head are really good because they give you the weight data. They give you guidance in terms of wide throw. There it is. There's the formula, by the way. They define for you what these different hinges are, and they do so very concisely and correctly. As far as I'm concerned, hinge work and hinge identification and a general knowledge of hinge understanding, regardless of you being an architect or a specifier, an engineer, a general contractor, a subcontractor, a manufacturer, a distributor, a specifier, a consultant. These catalogs are irreplaceable because they do give you all of the terms defined. Here's a finish chart. Other encyclopedic data start to tell you how they break apart their part numbers or how their part numbers are built, or the how to order section. Grade 1, 2, and 3 are defined for hinges. Security features are here. Other features, decorative tips are here. and then they get into their product data pages. So we're doing a 4B. 4B. There's a 4.5 by 4, 4.5, 4.5, the 5-inch tall, 6-inch tall, 8-inch tall. So here's our product catalog for the hinge that we're actually working on. Now, this catalog is really handy because they show a lot of hinges that most manufacturers actually don't include in their catalog. The problem with much of this material, in fact, is that it's not in stock. But that's an interesting fact about PBB in the sense of much of the odd hinges, like a 6 by 4.5, they likely don't have that in stock in a 3-knuckle hinge. But it is very impressive as to what they do actually stock. Or I should say a 4C. It's a concealed bearing hinge, 3-knuckle. They can and will order any of this, but these 8x8 hinges that we've brought in, I think those were placed on order in September, and it's now the end of November of a particular year. So long lead time. This is an institutional hinge, heavy door, security feature here. Prison hinge right there. Lots of interesting stuff in their catalog. Let's wrap this up on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So, as I had said earlier, I'm always impressed in terms of what they do stock. Quite frankly, I always look to do business with PBB every time that I can, and it's because they have figured out what a lot of other people haven't or are yet to. In the sense that much of what they sell, I can buy from someone else. So in that regard, their hinge isn't unusual. If I need a standard weight, 4.5, 4.5 ball bearing, stainless base material, brushed finish, NRP hinge, I can get that from anyone. But what they've figured out is what they're actually selling. What they're actually selling is service. This is an unusual hinge. It's 8x8, but let's, how many 8x8s will you do in your career? But what they have figured out is that it's service. I don't need this or that or this or that. What I need is a confirmation and a tracking number. That's what I need. They have really made it simple to do work with them, to do business with them. You send them a PO, they send you a confirmation, and a day or two later, you've got an invoice with a tracking number over and over and over again. And they just do that really well. So I look for opportunities to send business their way as much as possible, including looking for ways to be able to leverage their data in order to substantially build on the fact that they have so much inventory in stock. Anyway, if you have any questions on the 4B51 8x8 NRP hinge and 630 finish or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.